Hey there, welcome to Engineer Your Career, a podcast brought to you by West, a learning community empowering women technologists through mentorship. Join us as we hear from inspiring women tech leaders who are challenging stereotypes and paving the way for future generations. We hope their career journeys inspire you with new ideas to engineer your career. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Engineer Your Career. I am super excited to be here today with Ei-Nyung Choi. She is a startup advisor and a leadership coach. She's also been a fractional CTO and has a fascinating story of her journey in tech over the last little while. So super excited to have you here. Welcome, Ei-Nyung.
Oh, thank you so much. What a wonderful welcome. We met a couple of years ago, and every time I talk to you, it's been so amazing. I love your dedication to the mission. And yeah, very happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I love that we're connected and that we've had many opportunities to do things together. So appreciate you supporting West along the way. It's been really awesome. Well, I would love to start just for folks who may not understand all of the things I said about what you do. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what is it that you do right now?
Oh, so the thing I lead with sometimes that people kind of like is I'm semi-retired. And the only thing that it means is that I can take on only the work I want right now. And I'm so incredibly lucky. I recognize that that is a very few people, and I'm in a very privileged position. But startup advising is something I really love. I've been in a lot of startups. So what I like to do is I connect with a lot of young or first-time startup founders, and I coach them on a lot of things. At first, it probably starts with, product feedback or like hiring questions or reviewing their pitch deck for VCs, right? But it ends up really being a lot of, no matter what the product is, no matter who the people are, it ends up being a lot of similar themes, which is like loss of motivation or like feeling dejected, feeling burnt out, or people issues. So I think startup advising is very similar to the other thing I do, which is leadership coaching, because all those things I just mentioned, they all experience that. And by leadership, I mean usually tech lead managers or first-time engineering managers or first-time engineering directors and anything in between, usually with people who have just changed roles into a higher level of leadership because they were wonderful at the lower level and then they switch and they're so lost.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And I totally resonate with what you're saying in terms of the startup experience. And I think both of them have a similarity in that you're doing something new that you've never done before. And you go in with a ton of confidence and then you end up in that sort of like bit of disillusionment that happens like, oh my gosh, am I actually qualified and ready? And can I do all the things? And do I have all the answers? And so I can see how starting a startup or becoming a new leader would have a similar moment where you're faced with the realities and maybe a little bit of overwhelm in terms of all the things that you have to do. So that's awesome. What a cool set of things to be doing. So thank you for sharing that. Maybe wanted to start and back up a little bit to like, where did it all start for you? How did you first get into the industry or into software and programming?
Okay, so I have been so lucky because it's been luck after luck after luck for me, timing wise. I graduated from MIT with a mechanical engineering degree in 1998. 1998, it was such a different world. There was almost no internet, but jobs were falling from trees if you wanted to get an internet job. It was just really incredible. I actually only had a little bit of HTML knowledge. I was like writing a little like homepage, for myself. And with, I don't know if anyone's old here, but like rotating fireballs as bullet points and like a visitor counter at the bottom. So I was making those things. And that was luckily enough experience to get hired at the Sloan School, which is the MIT's business school, to help work one of the department's websites. And the funny thing is that that job was available because so many actual computer science students, they wanted the really cool technical work studies, and like working at the business school doing some website was not their thing, right? So it was beneath them, basically. But no job was beneath me. I just needed a job. So I did that as a summer job for a couple of years. And when 1998 rolled around, I applied for a job that I saw on Craigslist, if
Love that.
anyone's familiar. And I responded to them, and then they called me on one phone call, and then they flew me out to interview. I interviewed with maybe 5 people over maybe 3 hours. And then 2 hours later, they called me and faxed me an offer for employment.
I love that. I love that. So many of the things you said just took me back in time to 1998. And I actually, when you're talking about the rotating fireballs and stuff like that, I remember the early days working on Dreamweaver, and we would build sites and I would use the JavaScript timeline. And I made a site that had an image of a skier like skiing down across the page. And it was so janky, but I was like, oh, I love that you can animate stuff with JavaScript. And yeah, fun times back then.
It was fun times. And sometimes I like to tell people, I started working on web technologies before the table tag was in common use, or before actually JavaScript was in the browser, I think.
I love that.
I think it was only there experimentally, but
Yep.
But the other thing about luck and getting into the industry is that the two technical people, aside from my future boss that interviewed me, one was a bio PhD candidate dropout.
Oh, wow.
And the other one was like an 18-year-old who was just like hobby tinkering on code and was going to college part-time. Maybe he was 19. Yeah. And so they interviewed me, and I guess they didn't care that I had like not a real computer science background. They just gave me a questionnaire and like talked to me a little bit, and they're like, I guess. And here I am. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Well, clearly you impress them by being smart and capable and interested in learning. And those years were wild. I mean, we were sort of talking about how 1998 was really the huge dot-com boom. And then only just a couple years later, the big bust in 99 and 2000. And you mentioned that you were working on some really fascinating early technology. Tell us a little bit about what that was. I actually remember the technology that you worked on, but tell us a little bit about what that was like to be in that moment of...
There's actually two different ones that are like big markers, which is the first startup I was at, MP3s hadn't happened yet. They hadn't happened yet, but they happened while I was at that startup. And our startup was like a web interface to Usenet, which has a lot of binary files that are all over the place. But the MP3 standard came out. People started to create MP3 files. And now I understand they were pirating. I didn't know as a fresh young grad what was happening, but they were pirating a lot of software. There was a lot of not safe for work stuff that was being put out there, but I had no idea. Anyway, I was just working on this Usenet website thing. And we were, I think, the first to be, back then you had to download like little bits of files, and then you had to put them together, and then you had to run a script and then run it. But we were able to do it such that you could search for a random file on all of Usenet and then get all the files, have them stitched together on their own, and you just download the MP3 and you can just play it right there. And to celebrate that, we all got the first real MP3 players that only had like, I don't know, was it 3 megabytes? Something like that. It was very small. Yeah,
that's amazing.
So that was one. And the other one was that I got to get in on the iPhone and Android and Web OS, the Palm phone, like pretty much as they were born. Because before that, I was working on pre-smartphone technology, like the Nokia phones and I don't know, like the old like Windows phones, Windows CE phones. Ooh, they were terrible. Wow. So I was working on enterprise software that was a software replacement or competitor to BlackBerry, which... Wow. Do you remember BlackBerry? Yeah. So
for sure. There was a moment where we were sort of hoping BlackBerry would be an interesting third competitor to Android and iOS, but unfortunately that didn't happen.
Yeah. So for people who don't know what BlackBerry is, it is a small little handheld device that you can carry around that only does email. Just email. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were trying to get email on lots of other kinds of phones that you couldn't use email on. Which sounds ridiculous now. Sorry. But the really fun part of it was like, I said I started in web technology, but there I was working on firmware and also on embedded software. So I only did a little bit of firmware stuff, so that scared me off. But I did a lot of the embedded software that would ship and be flashed onto the ROMs and for the Trio.
Yeah.
Trio 600 was my favorite model, I think. And so I went from HTML and at the time Perl is like what PHP might be now, to learning C++ and C, and like I learned Java and the other Java as well. So I just went from Perl straight to C++ and putting them onto tiny devices with limited memory. And it's like, wow, management, super hard, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. We live in a world of abundance now where you don't, it feels like you almost don't have to worry about that stuff. It's not
So
totally true, but
yeah, I had that background. And there's a long meandering story I won't tell, but a different startup later that I was in wanted to start developing for mobile while like Android phones were not out yet. We were on the G1 prototype and we were on the SDK that started with a 0 beta SDKs. And so because I was the only person that my boss knew that had Java experience and mobile experience, so rare, I was like, I could do the Android work.
I love that.
It was super hard. So I was developing the Android version of what the team was developing, and we were developing for the iPhone, the Palm phone, and also for Flash. That's right. I also owned the Flash work.
Yay, Flash.
That was a fun job too, because every time I left the job, it was basically like, hey, learn a new language and platform at the same time.
Yeah. Did you have tricks for, I mean, you must have gotten really good at learning, but did you have tricks for like, what resources did you have or how did you go about learning all of this stuff?
Okay, I have to tell you this one story. The trick is that I really read a lot of other people's code and I would look at other people's commits. Like, and back then we were just committing to the trunk and manually pushing like just main. There was no branch. We just push main to production. But I have to tell you this story because it's super embarrassing, but people love it. So I was about a year and a half into work and I was still very in the stages of like learning anything at all. And I was working with someone who was incredibly senior, very experienced. He had worked at a bunch of, like, he worked at Apple when it was way smaller, and he worked at a whole bunch of other places. And he was probably in his 40s already, and I was just like 22 or something. His name was George, and this is important in the story because he and I were on a project together, and he was so nice. He taught me so much stuff. I saw so much code patterns and design patterns that I wasn't exposed to before. I was like, oh, this is what posting a message means. This is what an event handler is. So I learned all these things while working with him. But I also saw that some of his variables, not his function, but just his variables, had a G in the front, a little G, and followed by a capital letter, like timer, whatever, status timer or something, right? And I was like, gee, he must be notating for George, G for George, so that he knows that he wrote that code. So guess what Ei-Nyung did? Ei-Nyung made a bunch of variables with it starting with an E, and the G was just for global variables.
Oh no.
And also, if you followed any convention, the E would be for enumerations, which doesn't make any sense. But anyway, but I had been checking in this code for months at that point, months of like variables, and there were global variables that started with an E.
Oh my gosh.
Next to George's variables that started with a G. And I think he actually didn't notice. And so I admitted it and I changed all the variables slowly so that I didn't mess up. But that was
I love that.
a shockingly embarrassing mistake.
That's so great. That's so great. It is funny that I feel like I have embarrassing examples of software practices I had way back then as well. And it was, yeah, you're right. I feel like you have a mentor, you have someone you're following, and sometimes you ask why, and sometimes you just follow the pattern and whatnot. I love that. Well, amazing that you were working on, like, all of that was sort of innovating so rapidly and changing so rapidly. I think it's really incredible. It sounded like at some point you transitioned to founding your own startup with your husband. What was that like?
It took a lot of preparation.
Yeah.
So I actually grew up my entire life being like, I do not want to be a business owner. I do not want to run my own company. I do not want to be anyone's boss. And the reason is because, so I'm an immigrant and I am around a lot of immigrant families and their parents. And so many of the parents are trying to do their own thing. They own their own restaurant or run their own dry cleaners. It's very like, oh yeah, it's a stereotypical, what are the Asians doing? Those were my friends, right? And I saw how hard they struggled. I saw that, and like my dad, he was a carpenter contractor, which again is your own business, right? And I saw that like if the business didn't do well, you could lose your house. Yeah. Right? You could like not have a place to live. Whereas if I work for someone else and they don't do well, I always have the option of going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I had heard this myth that they have benefits at companies. And I was like, oh my God, I could have healthcare for the first time in my life because we didn't have health insurance. I think I literally went to the doctor 0 times until we had to apply for college.
Wow.
0 times for dentist and doctor because they needed like medical records. So yeah, I never wanted to start my own business. It just seemed like a bad idea. And plus, we had 2 small kids at the time. I think they were 3 and 6. And that's little and need a lot of work. And I love them. Like my heart just changed when I had them. Sorry, I'm like getting emotional. But
No,
I was
that.
like, okay, so we can't do anything to endanger their future. Like we cannot like dig into anyone's education fund. We cannot dig into our retirement funds. We cannot do any of that. We can only do this if we think we have sufficient buffer that we can actually lose a specific chunk of money and we could survive without remortgaging the house, right? So it's like, we're only going to do it if we can do it, not if we have, like so many people I know took out like 20 credit cards, right? And put their startup spendings on that. And I was like, I can't. I also had really bad credit because I had to pay rent with my credit card when I was in college because I was so broke and I couldn't pay it. So I had really bad credit and it took me years to fix it. So I'm scared of credit card debt. And so I was like, I can't do that. And I've always just wanted financial security. There were so many times when we were not secure when I was growing up. And I was like, startup founding sounds like the very opposite of that. Like,
I was just going to say, that's what I would think.
Yeah, because it's also like specifically for a startup, it's not even just like starting a new business. You're like starting a new business where that product doesn't exist yet. That's the whole point, right? So you don't know if it's going to work. It's not like opening another, I don't know, version of a whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the thing was that we had left the prior company under stressful terms. We weren't happy when we left. We voluntarily left, but we weren't happy. And that was a startup that my husband he was a co-founder in that startup. I didn't meet him there. He and his co-founder had sort of started this little startup under the umbrella of one of my former bosses. Actually, he was my present boss at the time. It's complicated, but basically my husband got funded for a startup at the startup I was working at for a different thing.
Okay, yeah.
And at some point after having my first kid, I was like, I can't commute from Oakland to Redwood City all the time. And neither can my husband. But my husband is getting to work from home 3 times a week because he's at that other startup with a lot of people in Oakland.
Yeah.
And I was like, coming back, my project had been shut down because it was understaffed and it wasn't doing well. And I was like, uh-oh, what am I going to do? And that's the time when I was like, I know Java. I know mobile devices. Put me on the Android part of that project. There's no one that can do Android there.
Yeah.
And so I got put on that project. I didn't report to my husband. I reported to the technical co-founder. We always kept separate streams. Like, we didn't go to lunch together. We didn't say hello. We didn't exchange looks at work.
Wow.
People knew we were married, but we did our best to just treat each other like coworkers. I didn't want any special treatment. He didn't want there to be any, like, honestly, the shadow would be on me, right? Not him, right? And so he would always be like, oh, Ei-Nyung was the one that worked here first, and then we got the startup, blah, blah, blah. So he was very supportive in that way too. But we worked together for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years at that company that he was running, and I was the most senior engineer there. And I was shocked at how much, like, I always loved him, right? And I always respected him and thought he was a great person and blah, blah, blah. But the level of professional respect I gained for him at work because of the way everyone else felt about him and because I could see how he like directed the team and made difficult decisions, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know you were this good, right? Like, everyone loves you. Everyone says you're the best boss they've ever had. Like, literally everyone.
I love that.
And he found just as deep professional respect for me. He knew I did programming, but what is that, right?
Yeah.
Like, he was not sure what I did at my desk or with people, what kind of projects I worked on. Even though we talk about it, it's still kind of a mystery. But since I was working on projects that he was fully aware of, he could see how much of a leader I was, how much of a big hand I had in engineering, how I hired and onboarded everybody, basically. And everyone loved me.
That's awesome.
There were a couple that didn't, but that's fine.
I love that. I feel like not a lot of married couples actually get to see each other in a professional setting. And sometimes being together in a professional setting is terrible. And
Yeah,
then that sounds like it was an amazing experience for both of you. Because I was going to
it
ask, I feel
was.
like not every couple would be good
Okay.
co-founders. And so I guess it sounds like you at least knew ahead of time that you
Yeah.
could be good co-founders together.
But the downside is that like here I am sleeping, right? And my husband gets a call being like the servers are down, right? And next to him is the most senior engineer. So he's like, "Can you restart the servers?" Like poke, poke, poke.
Did he
I'm like,
page you or just roll over and say hi?
yeah, he'd be like, "Hey, can you wake up?"
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, "Oh,
Um,
this part sucks," because we were new parents at the time. Like our kid was like half a year old. Right? I
yeah.
was
Oh
like,
my gosh, that's
so
really
he
funny.
felt really bad, but he was like, I don't know what to
Yeah.
do. Yeah, so I mean, my husband and I only decided that we could be co-founders because we talked a lot about it. We weren't like, "Hey, let's do this thing." We were absolutely not like, "Hey, let's do this thing." We
Yep.
were like, "Well, I want to do something and you want to do something. We have different complementary skills. We know the other person's work ethic and how good they are."
Yep.
But it was still like this long process of like, that sounds like a mistake. Because but the only thing that made it correct was that, yeah, we checked our finances. We decided on a specific budget that we were never going to go past. Like we would move it into a different bank account, right?
Yep.
To do the startup. We also went to sort of counseling to make sure that we were working out personal stuff and professional stuff and that they were not intermingling and that we were not bringing stress to the other parts.
So smart.
And we would still never have done it if we hadn't worked together on the same projects, not
Yep.
in a hierarchy, but together. Like we were in products that made this decisions, right? Like
Yeah.
on the same thing.
Yeah.
So because we knew that we could work well together and that we could also work well together in a situation where other people didn't seem bothered by it, maybe they were, right? But they didn't seem bothered by it. We were able to maintain that professional wall. We're like, we could try this.
That's
So we
cool.
tried it. But every single time I meet a startup founder, I'm like, "Tell me about your co-founder." And they'll be like, "Oh, this is a friend I've known for a long time." I'm like, "This is a friend? Did you ever work with them?" They're like, "Well, we worked on this project. Was it a real job?" And I push and push and push, or they're thinking about bringing someone on board that they just met. And I'm like, "No, do not make anyone your co-founder if you haven't worked with them before, when you're a startup, not when you're big. If you
Yeah.
haven't worked with them before, just because you get along really well as friends, it is actually almost a guarantee that you will not be friends anymore, I feel like,
Yeah.
from the number of startups I've seen. So I
That's
always ask,
amazing insight.
if you can become, I always say you can become friends after you've worked together, but don't work together after you were just friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that. I really do feel like that's the extreme version, being with a partner and
Yeah,
co-founding something. And it sounds like you took a lot of really key
yeah.
steps that you would actually recommend for others as well to I mean, is that something else you talk about in terms of having folks figure out their kind of their budget of what they're willing to put into it
Yeah.
before they make a decision about continuing or seeking more money, as well as the sort of counseling piece of it in terms of building that founder relationship?
Yeah, I think that like any other large financial decision, you really need to have not just thought the idea through. Like people think about buying a house, right?
Yeah.
And what often happens is they're like, "This is my budget." They go see a house. They're like, "Well, this isn't it." They go see another house that's a little higher than their budget, right? And they're like, "Oh, this is a little nicer." And then you start to see things that are much higher and you go see them and you fall in love with them. And a different kind of thing happens with startups, which is that I'm running out of money, but we're so close. We're so close. If we just had another month, another 2 months, we can
Yep.
do it. And this credit card offer with zero APR for the first
Right.
year, I'm not even joking. This is like such a common scenario. We'll pay for that month or two. And I'm like, "Oh no." And it always seems so close because almost no one gets zero users. Like they'll get one user, two users. They'll get maybe someone that looks like they might sign up for money. But the thing is that in order to not run out of runway, you need to either raise money or you need to become revenue positive. You
Yeah.
can't become revenue positive with one like consumer in a B2C business or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
need scale. So we actually also predicted scale of like, hey, if we're doing this kind of thing and the average pricing is blah, 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 what volume do we need for us to become sustainable if we have sometimes 2.5 employees, right? So we ended up having 2 employees and we were like, how much do we need to raise? What we ended up doing was we just raised an angel round with friends and family, but actually no family, just friends.
Yeah.
Also, I have another tip for startup people. When you're raising money from friends that believe in you, imagine you lost all of it, like all of it next week. Like it's all gone, right? And you have to meet your friend for dinner. Is that friend going to be able to look you in the eyes? Or are you going to be able to look them in the eyes? That's the amount of money that you can take from them, where you both feel comfortable with you losing it all. There's no return, zero return. And it even has to be like, my friend trusts me enough that even though it looks like I'm making bad decisions,
Yeah.
and I lose the money, that should be okay. And we still have our friendship.
Yeah.
So
That's
if they
great
want to
advice.
give you a lot of money, say, is that going to be true? If I lost all of this, would you be okay? Right? So don't take it if they wouldn't be okay. And also,
Yeah.
there's things like, hey, sometimes even when you're in really tight circumstances, you want something nice for yourself. So you might have a reasonably nice dinner or something, right? And this is based on a true story, right? And they might see that you went to a reasonably nice place on Instagram, and they'll be like, well, they're saying they're running out of runway. How are they going to the thing? And resentment builds.
Yeah.
So it is really tough to take money from family and friends for that reason. So only take money from if you have rich friends, or not
If
rich,
they won't
but
miss it.
they're secure, very, very secure,
Yeah.
and very risk tolerant.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice. Because when we had our startup, I was nervous about doing a friends and family round, and we ended up not doing it, partly because I feel like I wanted to be securely in the space, both of where I knew that the investors we were talking to could evaluate what we were doing in a way that they felt comfortable with it, and they are professionals at doing that. And also it's their business, and risk is built into how they think about everything. And so we did not do friends and family for ours because I wanted a real professional evaluation of what we were doing and whether they thought that it had legs and could make returns for them.
It's actually really interesting because in a weird way, that was the opposite of our approach with VCs, because we did think about raising. We met a couple of VCs, but my husband and I realized that we don't have the unspoken question, sometimes the spoken question is, how is this going to make me $1 billion? Or like whatever, right? Or
Right.
how's this going to become $1 billion company, a unicorn?
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, my husband and I were not trying to become a unicorn. We explicitly did not want to become a large company that is faceless and nameless and really focus on just the bottom line, because that's what we left, the other thing, right?
Got it. Yeah.
And we loved it when it was smaller and you only had one project at a time and everyone sort of focused on the mission. You had shared values and no one was a stranger. We really liked that. And so we talked about it and we're like, yeah, there would be this thing where we have to pitch it as a potentially $1 billion business, a $1 billion market. And we have to live with their expectations that would be the case. But we don't want it. It'd be a total lie. If we pitch that'd be a complete lie.
Yeah.
And what we really want is what they call a lifestyle business, which I think I like the sound of it on one side, but it kind of sounds condescending.
It is. Yeah. It's pejorative in their minds.
Right? And
It's
I'm
a failure.
But if you describe a lifestyle business, it's like, oh, you have a steady business and it makes enough money to keep running and paying you and all the employees, and you will be able to continue to do that and doing that for decades.
Yeah.
My God, that sounds great.
It's wild to think that that's not the definition of success, but you're right. Yeah. That's fascinating. Well, how did things end up turning out for your startup?
Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor.
Are you ready to take control of your career? West can help. The West Career Accelerator is a 6-month learning program that combines one-on-one mentorship and group-based career coaching to help women gain clarity, save time, and define success on their own terms. We're here to help you create a path towards the career you'll love. Check out how West can help you succeed at joinwest.org.
And now, back to our discussion.
Short story ran out of runway, totally burnt out, lots of crying.
Oh, that's hard.
But
that's so
the longer story is that we worked really hard. We tried to implement a lot of the ideals that we had. We had a weekly check-in that was, yes, it was a stand-up, but it was also like, hey, how are you doing? How's your burnout? The whole company. And we would, even though it's very small, we would have one-on-ones with the other employees, always looking to see what we could do better. And we really try to toughen ourselves up for feedback and things like that, and try to make good decisions while trusting the people that we hired, because that was really fundamental to us. If you hire people that you think you can trust, then actually trust them and see how it goes as opposed to micromanaging.
Love that.
And we also tried the 4-day work week, and it was great, actually.
Oh, cool. Oh my gosh.
They are right. It's less stressful because you have things you have to take care of. Everyone has things they have to take care of that's only open the weekdays.
I love that.
And we weren't doing like 10 hours a day crammed in. We were doing like, hey, we're going to do a regular work day the other 4 days, but we're going to just trust ourselves to really get it done, right? Yeah, there were no slackers in our team. And we also really cared about work-life balance. Even in the startup that my husband was running, there was zero crunch time there was one crunch time only. And we were developing games. And startups, both are notorious for crunch time or just overworking people. But my husband was super dedicated to keeping a work-life balance. So the office would be out of people by 6, unless someone randomly wanted to stay behind, but he was like, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I love that.
So it was really great. We tried to do all of those things that we had learned, try to be the kind of bosses that we sort of saw ourselves being.
Yeah.
And we were also trying to make the best decisions for the product, right? Constantly. And the hard thing that I didn't realize that being a founder is that if you wake up every single day and you do the best work that is humanly possible for you, and then you finish the day and you're like, I did my best, right? And you do that day after day after day, but you still result in failure or what feels like failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your business doesn't go anywhere. No one wants to play your thing, right? Then that really shakes your confidence. Because if you were like, I could question that decision I made 2 months ago. I mean, you do question it, but every day you're showing up trying to make the best decision possible and learn the lessons and iterate and do all those things. And I've been in, I don't know, that was the 4th or 5th startup I was at, maybe 6th. Oh, that was a 6th startup, right?
Wow.
So I've been on a lot of startups. I know what that life is like from the employee side, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think having other people's salaries and their living situation basically and their healthcare depend on the decisions you're making. And then every day you see the bank account going down, 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 down. And also we were very open with the bank account. We would update them every month on how much actual dollars is in the bank account.
Yeah.
And how much runway that translated to. And we always said, if it looks like we're running out, even during work time, we're not going to be mad if you're looking for a job because your family is the most important. Your housing, your healthcare is the most important. While you still believe we can do this, do this. Right? Yeah. But if you are we're not going to be personally offended at all. You can't be. You shouldn't be. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I do think not a lot of startup founders really think about that level of care in terms of I'm responsible for people's livelihoods here. And so you owe it to them to be transparent and authentic and honest about where you are while still hoping that they'll keep with you on the mission and the journey and you'll find a way to sort of turn things around and whatnot. But I do think that you are right also about the VC money. It's easy to think that the VC money is someone else's money and it's okay to just spend it. Whereas if you feel like you know who it came from more personally, you might take more care with sort of how you spend it as opposed to feeling like, whatever, we'll just go to the next VC and get more money.
Yeah, have that party. We can't have that party. I'm sorry, I can buy lunch.
Exactly. So yeah, well, I'm sorry it didn't work out, but I do feel like it's startup journeys are hard. And it sounded like after that you took a bit of a break. I'm sure you needed time to sort of decompress and whatnot, but did you think about not coming back after you took a break?
Well, so at that point we had 2 kids, right? And they were small and we were burned out, but we could, because we weren't paying salaries, we could take a little time off. Mm-hmm. So we both started looking I started looking about 3 months after, no, I think I started looking 2 months into it closing down. And the assumption was that I would get a job easier because he's a game designer and studio head. And I'm an engineer, a very senior engineer. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get that job first because there's much more opportunity for me. And that time was also a good time in the economy and in the industry. But I would have loved to not have gone back for a long time because I was still burned out. And I actually remember, I'm so embarrassed. They were so nice about it. I actually cried in one of the interviews. Oh, because they were asking me about difficult decisions I had to make as a leader. And I was talking about startup stuff. And I was like, oh God. And I was like, this is very fresh. I'm sorry. And they were so kind. Hard. They actually gave me an offer at the end.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they weren't just being like, that's fine. They were like, that is fine. They were so empathetic. Love those people.
That's amazing.
But that's not the job I went to, though. But the job I went to was Slack, because right before the startup, actually, right before our startup and serious talks started with my husband, I had made a little file, a little list of companies I might want to go to. It was like February 2014. Slack had just come out into public beta or something. I think they were in private beta until the end of the year, and they came out at the beginning of the year. I love Slack. I was like, this is the best thing ever. And we were a game company, and they spawned from a game company. So everything Slack had, we needed at the time. It was incredible. And so I had that on my little list of like short list of companies I would go to. Also because I had read up on the founders' bios, and I knew about at least the professional side of their backgrounds. And I felt like these are people that seem like they have ethics and values and a mission that I can actually be aligned with. You're not going to align perfectly with anyone, but I was like, I want to go somewhere where I know that they've made good decisions about things. And I think he did. Like when, I don't know if people know the Slack story, and I'm not going to tell it, but he had to do a lot of difficult things because they had to pivot to become Slack. And a lot of hard things happened. And I had read all these stories of how that was handled. And I was like, this is the guy. I would work for him. Stuart Butterfield, right? So I had that on my list. And then, things went... We were out of runway 3.5 years later. And then I was applying, and I was like, Slack's still at the top of my list. I had done the research. So I applied, and I really liked everyone I met. I was like, this is super nice. And their process was a little different. And I was like, oh, I enjoyed this. And I went, and I did love it. At first, it was really hard getting used to a bigger company because I was in such small companies.
Yeah. How big were they at that point?
I think they had something like, the rumors were that there was something like 400 engineers, but I was in the front end organization, and there were only 55 because I was asking around, how many front end engineers are there? And they're like, no one knows. And I literally went and counted, and there were 55. So I was one of the number 55 engineer at Slack for front end only. Front end, because they had a lot of different teams.
Yeah.
But it felt really small because those teams sort of operated like little communities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was really supportive. I had never worked with so many women and people of color in engineering. And I was like, oh, I mean, the numbers not that good now. And the numbers, it turned out, weren't that good in other departments and other teams. But my manager and my director were incredible.
Yeah.
But the thing I always tell people is that when I joined my team, there were more women named Jessica than white men.
Oh my gosh.
Can you believe that? In my engineering team. Right?
That's so awesome. What a statistic.
How? Right?
That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
And because people talk about the Matts, right? They're like, oh, you work with more white guys named Matt than black women in the company or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's true. Like you count it and you're like, oh my God, that's not an exaggeration. Yeah. Because tech is so undiverse right now, right? But it was such a wonderful environment, and it really did, there's a whole bring your whole self to work, and you shouldn't bring your whole self to work, right? But it felt like I could bring as much of myself to work as I wanted.
Yeah.
And be totally
that's amazing.
Fun. Yeah.
That's amazing. It is such a different feeling. I do feel like I had that when I was at Box. I really felt that. And it is amazing when you actually find an environment like that. It's hard to find, but it is always a real pleasure and a real joy to be able to do that, which is cool. When you went to Slack, I know you obviously as a startup, you were a leader in the organization. Were you hired as an individual contributor and as an engineer, or did you get into management while you were there?
So there were manager positions open and individual contributor positions open. And I gave it a lot of thought because I was like, even though intellectually I know it's not true, but going from, and I managed at the job before that, going from being a leader to an IC again feels like failure. It shouldn't, but it feels like failure.
That's hard.
And I was already really low on self-esteem, right? But I was also like, I'm not in any state to manage anybody, be responsible for big decisions. I want to not have big decisions. I want to just do the thing I know I can do, which is write code, ship products, implement features, right? So I was like, all right, maybe I'll do that again sometime, but I'm just going to go in as an IC.
Yeah.
And actually I had so much more fun as an IC because, well, one, it did build confidence, but I had more bandwidth and I impacted a larger part of the organization than I would have as an engineering manager. I mean, I befriended a lot of people who were engineering managers and people who had become engineering managers at Slack while we were there. And their team is 3 people, right? And they interact with a total of maybe 9 other people. And that's their scope. But at Slack, I started all sorts of random initiatives like a brown bag lunch, a tech spec review, a couple of recurring mentoring programs. And that impacted literally hundreds of people every quarter. And I'm like, I love this. And no one's saying no because I don't need a budget to just have a meeting. Right?
I love it. Yeah.
Like I'm not hiring people, whatever. Right? I don't need a team. So I had a really good time. And because I was doing random stuff like that, people really liked me. And I was like, oh, it's so nice to be well liked.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's kind of nice that you were able to choose those things as opposed to them being assigned to you as part of your job. And do you feel like maybe as an individual contributor, you had the bandwidth to do that maybe as a people manager, you might not have had the bandwidth to do that?
Oh yeah. As a people manager, I definitely would not have. But as an IC, I also shouldn't have. But I was carving out time. I was making time. I was making sure that I was always on. I knew that if I slipped up in my work at all, my actual assigned work, if I looked like I didn't care, if anything looked a little shoddy, that all of that would be gone because those are extra, right? Those are things I'm signing up to do. So I could not let my work, quality slip. And I never did. And I also enjoy, and this is weird, I didn't get into coding because I enjoy software, but I now really enjoy the process of developing things with people. So I enjoyed it.
That's awesome.
So I carved that time. And it's interesting because all of the things I'm saying is glue work, right? And we talk about glue work all the time. Women and people of color are always pushed to do glue work, not rewarded for it, and it's free, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing for me is that there was a time when I really wanted a promotion and my manager was like, you're not ready. And I was devastated. Like that in Slack, right?
Yeah.
I was really upset. And I was upset for a while. My manager was like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm not okay.
Oh, boy.
She was really great. But I was like, I could try to work in the specific way they want me to work to get to the next level, or I could do whatever I want and be happy and have the impact I actually want to have. And so I was just like, well, they're still giving me raises because I'm doing a great job. Good. I got the money. If they weren't giving me the money, I'd be like, but they gave me the money. I was getting paid on some of the highest parts of the band because we had like a little anonymous tracker for people's salaries and stuff. It's like, oh, cool. I'm not getting underpaid. So I chose to do the things I wanted to do and be like, I'm not going to hunker down and do these things. I think the thing that was upsetting for me is that in order to get promoted to the next level, essentially you needed to jockey for really plum projects, be like, oh, like sniffing out a good project and being like, I want that, and grabbing it out of someone's hands or coming up with something that is potentially useless, but sounds really cool. Right? And I was like, I'm not about that. And also that was from staff to senior staff. And even as a staff, I felt like there are so many people who are more junior that need the opportunity. I'm like, I've led projects before. I don't need to lead another project. I've led company-wide stuff before. I don't need this. I don't need to prove this to anyone. So I didn't. And instead I would lecture the senior staff and principal engineers too. I'd be like, you guys should be mentoring people.
Yeah.
And I was just like, hey, have you considered mentoring someone? I would say it nicer.
I love that,
like,
though.
Hey, instead of like you taking the project, what if you were the shadow, help them figure out what to do?
Yeah, that's amazing. There's so much value in that and sort of looking at it as an investment in capacity and figuring out how to deliver more value. And yeah, definitely, I can see that. I feel like I've heard that a lot of companies, that it's more about whether something is sort of innovative and presentation worthy than actually impactful or valuable to the organization or to customers or anything like that. It always bums me out that the incentives are not aligned to actually kind of create more value for the organization or to help people learn and grow. You did mention that there was a pivotal moment at Slack where you did end up getting promoted at the end.
I was like, there's a happy ending.
If you weren't sort of seeking out projects, how did you end up assigned to that project? Did you ask for it or did someone bring it to you?
My manager clearly saw how upset I was. I was not a person that used to crying at work. I was like, you do not do that, especially as a woman. You shut that down. Yeah. But I cried in front of her a couple times. I was like, this is so unprofessional. I was apologizing. I'm so emotional about this. And so she clearly knew I wanted to do stuff. Like, I felt like I should be promoted and needed to be promoted to be happy, right? Not happy, to feel like I had what was fair. I think that was the thing. I was always looking for fairness and equity. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want it for the title. I want it for equity. Yeah. I'm not trying to like slag on anyone. I was like, some of them are not contributing as like in the tier above me are not contributing as much to Slack engineering as I am. And I know that for a fact,
Yeah.
And so I was like, I just I should be where they are.
Yeah.
But I did get a project. She found it for, well, we needed to do the project. Like every department had a part of this internationalization project that they needed to do, almost every department. And our department had our slice. But what happened was that because I had prior internationalization experience from way back in my other jobs, and because I've been a proven tech lead for projects before, I got chosen as a tech lead for this whole project.
Oh, cool.
And so I had to coordinate different departments and check in code in their code bases and do all sorts of weird stuff. And that project was awesome because I think generally there would be like 8 or 9 people that came to meetings, and all of them were women of color, or there's one white guy, but we were all like women of color or women from different countries. And we were like, this is really nice. And sorry, I feel like I'm being incredibly sexist, but I was like, I feel like this project's going so well. It's so unstressful. And everyone's like, this is the most unstressful project I've ever had. And it's going so smoothly. I was
love that.
It is, right? It went so smoothly. And the thing is, it wasn't going smoothly because we were all just being agreeable. It was going smoothly because it was working. Like our work was top tier. We got stuff done. And we were able to write code that affected the entire project. And it was a refactoring project, unfortunately. No, it wasn't. Actually, the thing that got me promoted was the refactoring part of the internationalization project. The project itself was just shipped out to multiple different new languages and locales.
That's cool.
Oh, we secretly refactored.
Yeah.
So that got me promoted. But the bow on the whole thing is that Cal, the CTO, would do a little announcement to the whole company when someone got promoted. And he usually will review, or your manager will write the blurb and review it with you. They reviewed it with me and they put like, oh, Ei-Nyung is really well known for her technical leadership, blah, 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 blah. And you may also know about her mentorship and blah, blah. I was like, no, can we do it the other way? I literally was like, I know I didn't get promoted on it, but I want people to know that what I'm actually known for is caring about bringing up the whole organization and caring about specifically looking into underrepresented people. So I was like, shuffle the order, please. And so they did. And then so many people reached out and they're like, I can't believe you got promoted on that. I didn't. I'm known for that.
You're known for that. Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. I can definitely hear that passion for mentorship and bringing others. And you had mentioned at one point that you sort of after Salesforce acquired Slack, you got lured away for your dream job. What is your dream job? And maybe tell a little bit about whether that really was your dream job or not, or maybe how you feel like you have crafted your dream scenario now.
Yeah, I think the answer to the final question is I have, and I will get into it more. So at the time, I'd become a senior staff. That's only like, I think there were only like 16 people, and there were like, no, maybe there were 20 senior staff at Slack, all of Slack across all departments, all engineering departments. And there were like 8 principals. So, and at that point we had, I don't know, 900 engineers or something. Wow. So I was pretty proud of myself, but I was also like, we got acquired about a year ago. I actually know because all the startups I've been at, aside from my own, have been acquired. And I always would stay about a year and realize this is no good. So I was like, even in the best circumstances of this acquisition, it's not going to feel like Slack in about a year or two. And I'm almost fully vested with the major portions I got because I was there for the DPO also, which was great. So I was like, I should think about leaving. But I was like, okay, you have to wait until you get that last chunk. You got to wait for that last chunk. Just keep waiting. It's fine. You're happy. And I was happy. So I was like, why would I quit? So I wasn't looking, but actually it's related to internationalization project. I wrote this LinkedIn message where I was all weepy about, because one of the languages that we rolled out Slack to was Korean. And like, my Korean is not great. Business Korean is terrible. I have no idea what business Korean is or like any technical Korean, but I can speak like a random middle schooler, I guess, right? But that knowledge was actually fairly useful for certain parts of the project. And the other people in the team also spoke different languages. So this was incredibly useful. And that was where bringing our full selves to work was actually genuinely useful in a specific way. I wrote this message about like, hey, we put this out, but I was like, I put in a personal part, which was like, this is the first time in my, at the time, like 21 or 23 years of working where I've been able to send my mom, who doesn't speak English very well, just tiny bit, something about what I actually did at work. Because they had a press release, right? Like an announcement, a blog post about the project we did. So I was able to give it to her in a way that she could understand it.
I love it.
And like, sorry, that meant more to me than I thought it would mean. And so like I said, I wrote a really weepy message. And then someone emailed me about it. Like, didn't send me a LinkedIn. Like, someone emailed me about it. And it's like, hey, Ei-Nyung, but also using like a title for me that indicates she's obviously Korean, right?
Oh, wow.
She was saying how moved she was by what I wrote. And that, like, she said a lot of these things are genuine and personal. And I was like, and definitely wasn't a bot.
Yeah.
Or definitely wasn't just summarizing whatever I wrote to like recruit, right? Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to actually write back to this person. Because she's like, I really relate to that because I also don't speak Korean very well. And, my mom doesn't know, like, yada, yada. I was like, oh, yeah, this is very relatable. So I wrote back to her. And, and she was very transparent also that she's like, and it is a recruiting attempt. I was like, all right, lady, I'm not looking to leave. That's like another 6 months, maybe 6 to 9 months from now.
Yeah.
But we talked and she was like, but could you please, like, and I loved her. I'm still in touch with her. She's amazing. She's such a great person. Like, incredible. Like the fastest, best engineer I know and the nicest human being with such a kind heart.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she's the best engineer I know, actually. So she was like, please talk to my CEO. I'm like, nah. She's like, please talk to my CEO. No. But then a couple of weeks later, she's like, he's in town. Can you like meet him? He's in Oakland. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess that's like super close. I guess I'll meet him. Yeah. But he knows I don't want a job, right? And so we chatted and he was like, well, person tells me that you're not looking for a job, but tell me, what are you looking for after you're done with Slack? And I was like, well, at most companies, if you're like a principal engineer or a high-level engineering lead, a lot of your work ends up being, I want to say like 70 to 90% technical, where you are leading on the technical initiatives. And there's only a little bit of time for mentoring and really a negligible amount of coding. Right? You only do it for prototyping, probably.
Yeah.
But I was like, I love the technical side. I actually don't want to walk away from the technical side. I grew to really enjoy it. It scratches an itch, but I love mentoring. And I'm like, there's not enough people who are trying to not just do great and feel good and get rewarded, but be like, hey, we want more of other people that are going to excel in their own different way, right? And like be great. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want to be like able to like, instead of taking the project, help someone do the project because it's their first time doing something of that scope. And that's the kind of principal engineer I want to be. And I was also like, and I mentioned the mentorship programs to him that I had started at Slack. And I was like, when I was doing it all by myself for the first 3 cycles or so, I literally was looking at these Google Forms, putting them on Post-its and trying to match people. And I 100% prioritize women and people of color. And I was like, I'm going to get them the best mentor match. I'm going to give them the best ones, right? And I'm like, I'm sorry, everyone else. but all the mentors were good. All the mentors were so amazing. I think that's the testament to at least the front-end engineering team of Slack at the time. People are just wonderful. So that was a really wonderful thing. And I told him, it's like, ideally, I would be helping so many people who are underrepresented, who don't get the same trajectory chances that, other people get to. But I want to be involved technically, but I want to help mentor. And he says, what if we made that job for you? Oh, wow. What if we were, he's like, we are trying to hire from a diverse pool. We have a number of women, blah, blah. He gave me some stats and this many people in the pipeline, yada, yada. And I was like, this does sound good. And he's like, yeah, so we already want a diverse pipeline. And we do think that some of the people could like use some either technical or leadership coaching. There are people who are incredibly technical that do not know how to lead a project because they don't communicate. They just write the code, right? And then vice versa, right? Like people who could, so who have really great team skills and leadership skills, but are a little lagging on the technical side. And I was like, And he's like, and you'd be salaried, of course, but that would be your whole responsibility. And I was like,
what's the catch?
I literally said, what's the catch? Like, how could this work? What would I do? And he described some of that stuff to me. And we continued to talk, and they sent me a job rec that I helped write. And the job rec was very specific that was my role, right?
Wow.
But I went, and what they really needed was really fast, smart, technical people. They needed people to be writing the code.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have hired me. So they did lure me away. Yeah. And I left with 3/4 unvested, which I still regret.
Oh, no.
But, it was not the right place for me for a lot of reasons, some of which I feel like I shouldn't say. Not the right place for me. I was incredibly miserable. It was For me personally, it was my worst experience at a startup, even though for a lot of other people, they said it's their best experience. So people differ, right? And I don't want to paint a picture where like it's evil. It wasn't for me. And I was miserable. I was going to leave after the first 3 weeks, actually. And my husband was like, you sure? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, well, what if you stuck it out a little longer? And he was right, because if I walked away then, I would have been like, what did I walk away from?
Right.
But I ended up walking away at 9 months. But I still stayed in touch with them. They brought me on as a technical advisor. So I continued to invest shares, and I was mentoring people who reached out to me. So that was fun for a while. But at some point, I felt like I wasn't very useful to them. So I was like, I'm enjoying this, but I don't think you're getting the value you should get. Let's cut this off. So they did. And then they got acquired last year. So I did make a little.
Well, it's always good to recognize that even in a, I think to have your dream job, you sort of have to have both what you need, but also what they need as well. So I can see being aware about that is really great.
Yeah. That mismatch was so terrible.
So, sometimes it just doesn't pan out exactly how you want, but amazing that they created that opportunity for you. How did you pivot from there into what you're doing now, which sounds very much like it is your dream job and exactly what you were hoping for yourself?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, after I quit that job, I actually immediately went back to mentoring and coaching. And it was actually my first time charging people for coaching. Before that, I was all volunteer mentorship, and I was mentoring at like 6 different organizations and at Slack. I just really like it. And I was like, oh, wait, I can get this piece here, like in the coaching and mentoring. Well, could I get the technical piece somewhere else? Through startup advising, there is a lot of working with this technical stuff. It's like, hey, those would be bad technical decisions that makes the system too complicated. Oh, do you need to do a round loop? So I was able to be involved in that way with the startups, and also a little bit of coaching. But with the startups, there's fewer startups than there are underrepresented people that are engineers or, about to be managers. So I wanted to do women of color as my startup people, but some of them aren't. But they're still wonderful people, right? Sorry, I just really feel like I'm saying something.
No worries.
They're fine too. Yeah. And the thing is, I super enjoy working with, I think there's just this relaxation and understanding when we're like, let's just talk real stuff. Right?
I love it.
So I get that. And I think the thing I was missing about it was the little bit where I get to work in a team and write code, because I kind of miss that too. And actually this ties into what I'm doing with my niece. I've taken her on as an apprentice. She's doing UX design and UI UX for me, and as well as web, like actual implementation. And I'm writing the actual code. So we're doing some of that. We have like regular stand-ups. We have meetings where we're like, what are we going to do next? Did that make any sense? And so I'm training her on all these professional stuff. And it's super fun.
I love that.
Because also we're not doing the dumb stuff people don't like at work, right? We don't have like 1 million tickets. We don't have stand-ups that last 2 hours.
Yeah.
You talk about the stuff that needs to get talked about and exchange information we need to. And I'm extremely happy with the stuff she's doing. And she's probably okay with what I'm doing. Yeah.
I'm sure she is. She must be the best aunt ever. That's so cool.
But it's been fun little projects. For instance, our first one was, so I recently gotten into K-pop.
Oh, nice.
And it was it's a little beat count estimator for if you're making concert bracelets, because I was always running out of beats at the wrong time. Yeah. So you can like, whatever. And then the second one was I'm specifically into BTS, and they just had to come back. Sorry. That one was, the game Connections that New York Times has? It's like a Connections clone, but it's only BTS stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And the third one is we're going to do a K-pop DB, kind of like IMDb. And the data requirement is ridiculous. We're like, we'll never be able to fill out the data. We're going to just start with 2 groups that we like and see if anyone even likes that. And
what a fun thing. I love that you're getting your technical, your mentoring and coaching, and doing a startup with her at the same time. So it's all the fun stuff together. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been really fun to hear your journey and all of your insights along the way. And I really love that you have creatively been able to construct an amazing set of opportunities for yourself to sort of get everything you need and have the self-awareness of what you love and be able to follow those things that give you joy. So really inspirational. And thank you so much for taking the time. I've just really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, and thank you so much. This was super fun for me. And I hope we can do something like this again.
All right. Well, thank you. And I also want to say shout out for all the support you've given West over the years. Thank you so much for leading conversations, leadership talks, career development workshops, mentoring, et cetera. So thank you so much. And I really just appreciate everything you've done for the West community over the years. So thank you.
Engineer Your Career is produced by West, a learning community that empowers women technologists through mentorship. Special thanks to our audio production team, Heidi Williams, Amanda Beatty, and yours truly, Karen Coe. If you enjoy our work, we encourage you to share this episode with a friend. Want to hear more from Engineer Your Career? Subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. We look forward to having you back for our next episode. Thanks for tuning in.